We're going to talk more about this now with Yossi Mekelberg from Chatham House, who joins me to get a bit more analysis. Yossi, here we are heading into these new talks, these indirect talks. Tell us a bit more about what you think we can expect from all of this. Can we be hopeful?
Good afternoon. I think those are tough talks there, but it's better to have talks, even if indirect, than not having talks at all. But there are still stumbling blocks there. We see that President Trump is trying to create this optimism and talking about quick solutions to these obstacles in the negotiation. But those are going to be tough talks when, there are issues like the release of the hostages and the exchange of Palestinian prisoners, including 250 that are a sentence for life term, which is something that difficult for Israel to swallow. So they have to decide exactly who are the 250. Can Hamas find all, for instance, the bodies of the hostages that were killed? Then the issue of where Israel is withdrawing and at what pace in Gaza. And of course, one of the major issues for Hamas, it's whether it agrees to disarm, and again, at what pace and how, and some of its people live in Gaza. So I think we can be cautiously optimistic, but those are still tough negotiations.
Certainly. There is a note of positivism, though, from the president of Egypt. Of course, those talks are being held in Egypt, who has praised Donald Trump's plan ahead of those talks. Do you think that this plan is really different from things we've seen before? And will things be different this time around?
I think what we see is tweaking some plans that were introduced before. I think the most important thing in the immediate term is ending the war, because we have seen what this war, the horrific consequences of the last two years, and tomorrow it's exactly 2 years since October 7, 2023. So I think many of us thought that this war could and should have been concluding a long time ago and saved a lot of the misery, the suffering that we witnessed. But I think, as in many cases in conflicts like this, it's between the sides are getting to the point that there is enough fatigue to put pressure on them to stop, and the involvement of mediators. They also use their levers of power over them and influence in order to stop it. And it seems that in this case, Washington, Trump himself personally, tried to put all its weight in order to end the war. But as far as the terms, I think the conditions on the ground will dictate to a large extent whether each of the sides can improve their position over this point. For instance, what relevance Hamas is going to have in Palestinian political system and society post-war, what happened to Netanyahu when the war ends, because there will be demands for investigating October 7 and the way Israel conducted the war and its relations with the world over the last 2 years. So we are in the first stages, but very important and crucial ones.
Well, what are your thoughts on that last point, at how Israel, the Israeli public, members of opposition parties, and even the far right in Israel are looking at Benjamin Netanyahu at this point? Do you feel like there is a movement that's starting to grow against him within Israel?
I think not many trust Netanyahu on a personal level, because we see how he keeps changing the narrative, his version of events to suit his personal political needs. Even his partners in coalition don't believe him. Definitely most Israelis and the opposition. And Israel is said for a very long time right now, more than 70%, that they preferred for many months to see the end of war and see the hostages back. But it's interesting to see the reaction in the Israeli political system. You would almost expect the ultra-nationalists, the messianic elements within the Israeli government to threaten immediately that they would leave the government. They haven't. They're highly critical of the plan, but they are not threatening to leave the government immediately, because they know that they don't have an alternative as such, and they are afraid of election. The opposition, on the other hand, said, listen, if the right the ultra-right doesn't support you in the parliament, in the Knesset, will give you the backing in the Knesset for this deal, because that's what we are all interested in. And then we need to decide when the call for election. Mind you, that elections are due anyway between now and next October.
Yossi, thank you for that. Yossi Mekelberg there speaking to me from Chatham House.